putting this together, this panel, Dom, you have come up with 4 excellent examples of 4 completely different models for community radio. Some I've learnt about today in a very positive way, some I knew about, but I've learned even more. So I'm going to open it to everybody on the floor now. If you can identify yourself, maybe please, with the question, who you are first of all, before the question, and then keep your question very short if you want to ask a specific question to any of our panellists here. Otherwise, I'll choose whoever is the best one. So who's going to kick us off with a question? Any hands in the air? Otherwise, I'll refer to my copious amounts of notes that I've made. Does anybody have anything? No? Okay. Oh yeah, we do at the back. Is that Andy? I'll tell you what, can we come down to the lady in the front here? Andy, I'll come to you afterwards, okay? It's just if you had the last question. So if you can just say who you are, well, we know you're from BA1, aren't you? So.
Hello, Julia, well, I'm from FM. For David, actually. With ad revenue, one of our problems is knowing how large our audience is. How do you identify the size of your audience? Because it's the first question that I'm sure
I have 2. Hello, I have 2 answers. One, why does it matter? If your radio station is well known in your local community and you're doing all those events that I discussed, and your brand is seen out and about, and the radio station seems to be doing things positively, and it sounds right to the advertiser, that should be enough for them to say, I would like to be on your radio station, I want an association with your station. The other answer is go out and ask the listeners.
We are doing the second.
Short and sweet. We do have this bugbear, don't we? We're not Rayard. And the first question I would suggest any station manager or fundraiser or marketing person is asked, well, yeah, how many listeners do you have? So, Pippa, do you have a creative way of answering that question?
I do. There is some work going on to try to develop a measurement system, but that aside, because there's nothing really to report on that today. But the answer to the question is that you need to have the stories. My favourite story, for example, our first RSL, we'd been on air 5 days, local job centre manager came in on the breakfast show to talk about all the things the local job centre does with businesses and with job seekers. And she said, while I'm here, we've got some vacancies up at Wetherspoons, at the junction on the M40. Anyway, so she went into detail about that. She left our studio at 8:30, went back to the job centre where there were people waiting outside. And then she phoned me at 3 o'clock that afternoon to say actually 6 people, on the strength of that interview, had gone to the job centre, filled out the application, been interviewed, and had been offered jobs. And stories like that will have advertisers queuing up because they want to be associated with that sort of success. So if you've got those stories ready, and it could be the job centre, it could be relatable to that advertiser that you're talking to, think about what's going to press his buttons. Is it people buying cars? Is it, people buying pet food, job seekers, whatever it might be? Have those stories at the ready, because that then will help you do a body swerve of the how many listeners have you got question.
Superb, thank you. Before I come to you, Dom, Job Centre Plus funded 2 of our RSLs at BCFM before we went on air because they happened to be in the building for a day putting on a roadshow and nobody turned up. And I was talking to the guy and he said, we spent £10,000 on today alone. I said, well, how about I give you 28 days of free advertising and it'll only cost you 10 grand. So he paid for 2 of our RSLs and they loved it. Superb. Dom, I'm sure you have something to add to that.
Well, I think what the answers so far from the panel have established is you must have an answer, and it's got to be credible, and what we've heard so far is exactly fitting that bill. I would add to that, get sponsorship from a market research company. And I might just, anyway. So if you've got a relationship with a market research company, and you might say, well, if they're your pals, how credible is their data going to be? Then the answer to that is the Market Research Society have very identifiable methodology, and as long as you're operating within that and you're weighting your results correctly, then there's no reason why at all there shouldn't be people that you associate with. What we do is every 2 years we do what's known as a random digit dialing survey, which is through postcodes, and you need to identify, I think it's 1 in every 5 telephone calls that you make gets a positive result. Now, unfortunately, a positive result doesn't mean to say we love Summer Valley FM. A positive result is we are prepared to do your survey. So if you're going to get 500 positive results, which I think is a credible thing to weight up the results as opposed to 250, which makes it less credible, then you're making 2,500 calls. Now that's where you struggle, particularly if you're not actually paying for it. But at Summer Valley FM, we've done this 3 times. The results have actually been quite consistent and establishing an FM audience of around the 11,000 mark, which when you're serving 3 smallish towns is not bad at all. And so we can use those surveys. And we always say, look, this was done 2 years ago, but I conservatively estimate that is the case now. We know that we're getting listenership through our DAB pilot in Bristol and Keynsham, and we've got an increasing online audience, as I'm sure all of us have. So then when you put the figures in the context of that, it suddenly sounds like we're actually telling you the news on a bad day, right? This is, and I find, I would love to have more time to sell advertising actually, and I just don't. But that is a good argument.
Thank you. I think Love Andover is a great example of branding and brand awareness, not only listenership, it's brand awareness. How many people, when I worked for Star FM, they were chuffed that they had 20% brand awareness in Bristol. I said, yeah, but that's 80% of people that have never heard of you. Of that 20%, only 2% listen to actually your point, whatever. And then they went down, funny enough, after I left. That's a different thing. Anything to add to that, Dave, or should we...
Yeah, just very, very quickly. I don't do the sales here, actually, that's Nick, and of course, unfortunately, he's had to go now. But my stock answer tends to be when somebody says to me, how many people are listening? I say, 3. Unless it's Thursday, and then my mum goes to bingo. And that always gets a laugh, and that kind of gets everybody to move on. But, like Pippa said, always have a story ready, have something you can back up. There are 2 stories that I can do on that. Interviewed a guy who set up a local business himself, in front of windows, doors and conservatories, which came up in conversation earlier on. And the story basically, when we were talking to him, was he'd left school with no qualifications and was told basically, you're never going to do anything. The man now lives next door to Martin Clunes, has a multi-million-pound business, and off the back of just popping in and just talking to me on air, sold £90,000 worth of windows within 24 hours. Very, very happy man. The other story I always tell is of a local car dealer who we tried for years, even as a commercial station, we tried for years and years and years to advertise with, which wouldn't do it. And then about 6 months after we launched Sedgmore FM, he rang me and said, can you come down and talk to me? I said, yeah, of course I can. So popped down and saw him. And he said the reason that he wanted to actually now work with us was that he's got a car dealership, he's also got a garage as well on the side. 8 out of 10 cars that were coming in were tuned into us. And he used that as his own barometer. So, yeah.
Superb. So buy yourself a garage and tune all the radios in. There we go. Andy, you moved. Are you back? Oh, you're there. You're sat down again now. Come on in, hit us with it. When you get the microphone from Sue. Thank you, Sue.
My question is to David. Good presentation, by the way, David. I like the bit that you said about towns struggling and turning into ghost towns, because they are basically. And the same thing's really happening in and around Exeter. There's more charity shops popping up than there is, local businesses.
They got lots of coffee shops though.
Yeah, but I love the loyalty card that you've introduced, and I thought that is a great way of getting people to shop locally in the town and sort of get your brand out there. Could you tell us a bit about how that works?
I can. I think I actually mentioned it in the presentation. That's how I've done a deal with an existing loyalty card. So I thought it was something that I thought Love Andover should do before we launched the radio station. Somebody else has got there before me. So we formed a partnership with them. The hard credit card size card is sold to people in order to get the discounts. Now the guys who run the card are working extremely hard to sign up lots of businesses. In Andover alone, they've got 140 businesses, all of which offer discounts to local companies. No, they get the discounts from the companies to pass on to holders of the card. The income comes direct from the listeners. So the partnership we've arranged is that we split some of the revenue for people who purchase the cards. But I'm developing the online or the digital version of it, and of course what you keep is a percentage of each sale. And I think you guys probably already do something not dissimilar, where you sell products on your website at a discount, a 50% discount of the total price, of which you get to keep it, but you're offsetting it against advertising. That all works within the app system that we're in the process of building. So they're all off-air kind of revenue bits that can kind of help us support your radio station.
So you're advertising it on air.
Can we get this on mic? Sorry, I'm recording today, by the way, so I just want to get everything on mic.
Sorry, I should have.
Can we introduce names and...
Sorry, my name's Dave Adcock from Radio Verulam.
Hello.
Hello. So I imagine you're advertising on air and on your website, are you?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent.
The purchase of the card, and also because of the business relationships that we've got, we are working hand in hand in order to kind of get more larger businesses to offer the card to their staff.
Superb, thank you, great answer. I used to live in Snorbans, by the way. There we go, any more hands up in there? We do, at the front there. Jason.
Thank you, Jason McCrossan from Maidstone Community Radio. I think one of the biggest challenges is the team you have around you to help you take the radio station forward. I've been really impressed with what I've heard from you guys today. I think there's some really great examples of running community radio stations. Can you talk us a little bit about your station in terms of your staffing and whether you pay any staff, how you manage that sort of stuff?
Who are you looking at first?
Okay, let's start off. Let's start off on the right then. I think that's one for everybody there. Because
I'm quite happy to go first.
You do have 4 different models.
We have a regular team of 24 volunteers, ranging from the youngest one started with us when she was 15, she's now 17, doesn't want to go on air, doesn't have any interest in ever being on air, but loves pushing buttons, and is great because it means that when we go out to events, she will stand there and drive everything, and then the presenters can be kind of the presenters at the front of the stage, as it were. We have 3 paid staff here, myself, Nick, who was here earlier on, and also a guy called Jason, who's paid part-time as well, and looks after all our social media stuff, and actually is our liaison between us and the YMCA, who actually own, obviously, the building and the licence. Our oldest member is 70, so we've got people across the thing, and everybody has their own place, as it were. Everybody feels part of the team, everybody knows everybody as well, which is great. But team spirit is important. It's important to make sure as well that everybody gets together and knows what's going on.
And Dom, you hinted at your funding for staff at Summer Valley.
Yeah, I mean, just to put this in context of the community radio tours I do, and I've visited around 60 community radio licences across the UK. Coming now is a personal opinion, and I want to put that alert out. But in my view, having gone to so many community radio stations, those that employ and have some sort of paid staff element as part of their business plan, those who have a business plan is a pretty good idea, generally engage more. They engage more volunteers, they do achieve more with their audiences, and so that's my view. At Summer Valley FM over 10 years we've pretty consistently employed 2 people, and that is a manager, but then somebody to look after the technicalities, which since I'm the manager, that is a very needed area because that is decidedly not my own background. Actually, as it turns out, we've just slimmed it down to 1, but you know, we're maturing nicely, and as we go forward, it's going to be a manager working with a sales operative. The charity may be buying in will be buying in training support, but from Summer Valley FM right now, what we need is, just very quickly also, I've done at least 200 interviews in 2018, and I've had some really good conversations with all the panel members, amongst other things. But one of the conversations that I remember the most was one I had in Cardiff, with a chap who runs 5 hyperlocal publications. This is at the launch of the, whatever that network's called, the hyperlocal agenda thingy bob going on at Cardiff University, run by the impressive Emma Mees. And this guy, I said, when you're running a local publication, what are the things that you need? He said, you need 4 things. You need to have somebody to run the whole, offering with editorial skills. You need to have an administrator. You need to have a journalist, and someone who's professionally trained to do it, and you need to have a sales operative. There was a short pause, and I went, and he said, the most important out of that lot is the sales operative. I've put feelers out in the Summer Valley FM community saying, if you have the right sales experience, you want to help us out, but you're not in work because you've maybe just had a baby or caring for an elderly relative or whatever it is, come and see me, and I will create an opportunity, because I think when you get the right person along to sell in a good old-fashioned sales sense, then that's worth it.
Superb. I think it's important to say that many community radio stations run without any paid staff at all. The ones certainly in and around Bristol, BCFM now, since Joanne and myself left, nobody's been paid. Bradley Stoke Radio, nobody's been paid. Ujima get paid per project, not for managing the radio station. The award-winning Andover Radio, Pippa, what's your staffing structure? I'm sorry, you haven't won any awards yet, have you? Sorry, the award-winning Wickham Sound.
So we have about 80 regular volunteers, and then another 20, 25 who are sort of on the edges. We don't see them quite so often, but 80 people regularly in and out every week. And nobody has a salary. Myself and the station manager, Luke, are on a commission scheme, and we've got 2 or 3 people in the team who go out and sell and follow up leads for us, and they get a commission, and Luke and I get a slice of that as well, because we have created what they are then selling. So that's how it works at Wickham Sound. We've got a team of people who do the back office stuff, a team of ladies who book all the guests in and stay on top of the calendar and all of that stuff. So that's how it works.
That's fascinating, that's interesting, I wasn't aware of that. And definitely Andover.
I think you should know we're only 6 months old, and as I pointed out earlier, that we're going to end up with zero money at the end of this financial year. So it's slightly early days for us, but it sort of works currently at setup that there are. To answer the volunteer question, there are about 28 people that are involved in the radio station on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but there are 5 people that get paid, but it's in ebbs and flows. It depends on where we sit at the end of each month. There are 3 of those are directors. There's myself, overall, my community guy who I mentioned earlier. There's someone who drives the content for us on air and online, and there's a programmer and a salesperson. The salesperson, Tuesday next week, is about to start full time with us, so that's when the salaries officially start, and the programmer gets paid effectively a freelance fee. But I think that's the kind of direction it will go in, and probably stay at that level for the next year or so.
Amazing. I think you do have to be creative with your funding bids as well. I'm doing one with Dom at the moment. It's only £10,000, but built into that is management fees, studio hire fees, all of that, which ultimately will go towards Summer Valley. So you have to be really, really creative. So that's really interesting, because I have 4 very different questions. We have 5 minutes left.
Side radio in Macclesfield. So it's funny, I always end up with a microphone when there's 5 minutes left. This little section, possibly if Dom and Martin have got some work experience,
How many people wanted to do that to Nick?
Not for the first time has Nick been silenced.
usually Martin turned it off, but if we're not working. I'll come a bit closer to you. Yeah. In 15 years' time, I'll be 74, believe it or not, and we've been running for 15 years. 15 years. And my word, we've had some fun over the 15 years. And every speaker that I've heard today, I can relate to everything that you're saying. And I think you've been really inspirational. Mega inspirational. The only thing I would say is that we've been going 15 years, and income, I saw your income figures on there. When we started off, we were sort of 90 grand a year that went to 80 and then to 70 and then to 60 and then to 50 and then blah blah down. And if I was being honest with you now, I'm not being negative, I'm just giving people a reality check. As it stands just at the moment, pardon me French, we're on his arse. That's where we're at the moment. And how do we turn that round now from where we are at the moment? We've actually been victims of our own success, because we've had some brilliant people at our community radio station who also did that other stuff outside of just presenting and being involved with the radio. Sadly, we've lost a lot of them through being victims of our own success. These people have moved on into TV, into radio, into lots of different things. They're still in those positions because of what they learnt with us. Some never been in radio before and they've moved on and they're still in those jobs. We've lost those people, and I think we're trying to achieve what you guys are achieving now without the people to do it. Hence why I was very pleased that James mentioned about the team that you've got around us. We haven't really got the team now to deliver what you're delivering, but we're still kind of doing community radio. We're still doing it in a roundabout way.
Let's get to the question, Nick.
Well, the question is, how do we turn it? How do you think we turn it round? How do we turn round where we're at the moment?
That is a really excellent question, because I think the landscape has changed. Certainly since, thank you so much, since 15 years ago, when we were lucky enough to be funded by central government, etc., and local government. I remember just picking up on Nick. Tim Pemberton, the managing editor of Radio Bristol, came to me and said, "You know, I'm going to steal all your talent, Phil." I said, "No, you're not. I'm going to offer it to you, because that's an outcome. That's a great thing." The more people who are now in the BBC, commercial radio, TV, that have come from a community background, isn't that great for the sector? That's superb. And one of the broadcasters who does the drive time show now on Radio Bristol started off at Bradford Community Radio with Mary many years ago and has come down and is superb. So there we go, just in a nutshell then. Well, Nick said it all, I don't need to recap. Dom, you've got the mic, you start.
Well, I think over the 10 years, and I touched on this when I was talking, the landscape changes so much. It's not just about the educational partnerships, but how do people advertise? How do they get over their awareness of their products and services? You know, what is the finances for skills-based learning? All these things are really shifting the whole time. So my advice is, firstly, you should have a really strong board, which is bringing a variety of skills and talents to the table, and that board should be readdressing the business plan. And you need to be having a look at what is the situation out there, what is community radio in Macclesfield and Bollington, Nick, looking to achieve, and how can a business plan look to address it. I always feel with you, Nick, that it is you. You've done this incredible sort of long journey with your radio station. But I do wonder who's on the board and what help are you getting, because these can never be a one-person operation. It is about the strength of a board is really vital for a radio station. And revisit the business plan.
Superb, great answer. Let's come to you next, Dave Sedgmore. Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah, I kind of echo what Dom says. You kind of need a strong team at the top end. If it was, there's no way that I could do what we do at Sedgmore if I didn't have the team around me. Keeping them, to be fair, like Phil said, it's a case of, if we got somebody who leaves us and goes on to bigger and better things, so say, fantastic. What a great advert that is for our station. You know, you can't get that anywhere else, can you? You can turn around and say, there's a guy that started with me. I won't say his name, many of you in this room will actually know him. He came to me with his parents when he was 12 years old. We couldn't do anything with him at the time. I used to work, obviously now he's now 30 something. But we trained him, we worked with him. He now works full-time, has been working full-time in commercial radio for years. Absolutely loves it. But he started with us, doing just, you know, RSLs and bits and pieces like that. It's a great advert. Turn that to your advantage. You know, it's the place where stars start, if you like.
That non-threatening environment, which we all encourage. Just before I come to you, Pippa and David, like any good gig, we're going to do an encore, so we're going to do another 5 minutes, but we will still hit lunch at 1:45. Okay, is that okay? I was given the nod by the manager. So there we go. Pippa, in a nutshell.
Okay, so two things. First of all, you've got to create something that people want to be a part of. You know, whether that's your brand, whether you do it as a club, You've got to create an excitement around your station that have people knocking on your door. And that is whether they want to be presenters, whether they want to be a guest because they know they're going to reach people, or whether they want to do business with you. That's the first thing. And the second thing is there's always a lot of talk about how we're a stepping stone for young people going into the broadcasting industry, and that's brilliant. And at Wickham Sound we've had a lot of success, but particularly in our sports team, where I think 4 or possibly even 5 guys now, and they are all chaps unfortunately, but they've gone through our sports team and are now all working on BBC. Some for BBC London, one's gone recently to 5 Live, and they started out with us and with other local community stations. But community radio isn't just about that. It's about people like me. I've got no, well, actually I say this, if Radio 4 phoned me up and offered me a job, I'd be off like a shot, of course I would. But that's not what it's about for me, and I think you need to build your team needs to reflect your listeners. So our listeners, don't forget our target is 35 and over, our listeners are retired. They are, they're parents at home, they might be mature students, they're working shifts. There's all sorts of people out there, they're business people. Don't create a team which is all people who might then go off and go into the industry. For some of us, creating a community station or a local station is the pinnacle of the career. Everything I've done up until now has now been fed up into what we're doing. And I'm not doing it because I'm using it as a stepping stone. So I think have those opportunities for young people, but build a team that's going to stay.
Thank you. I've heard Dom say that as well. Many years' experience in broadcasting, but you feel as though now this is what it was all building up to. So it's great. Don't forget we don't just give away talent. Richard, you'll remember this. Awaz in London, BBC journalists used to come on placement to the station because they were the community. They learned community journalism within the community radio station. You charge for that, or it's a reciprocal deal. They then broadcast your material, etc. That's going back to the old CMA, BBC, SLA that I wrote. Very quickly then, David, if you have anything to add to that, please.
I'll answer. I thought the question was about money, to be honest, rather than people, so I'll answer it that way. I think over that 15 years, if you were successfully doing sort of £90,000 15 years ago, and now you're doing whatever it is, what's changed in that 15-year period, or moreover, what hasn't changed? Because the businesses do have a habit of kind of doing their thing and doing really well, and if you always do the same thing all the time, you'll always get the same results. Has the business developed? And I pointed out earlier, the marketplace has changed. Certainly in that 15-year period, from an agency perspective, the majority of advertising money now, it may not be the majority, but shed loads more than 15 years ago is being spent on digital online, because it's a two-way connectivity. It's less cost per thousand, you reach a greater audience, you spend less money, it's visual, it's video, it's all over the place. It's all about data. So I would suggest that if you had a sizable amount of advertising income as a radio station before, that you find a way of kind of branching out.
How successful are you as a radio station? So, well, we've got hundreds of people, we do this, we do that. He said, how much money do you have in the bank? I said, none. He said, well, you're not successful then, are you? He was seeing it purely as a monetary thing. I was looking at it completely. He then gave us 40 grand, which was nice. We had 2 more questions. Stu, your question was your hand up at the back. If I give you this microphone quickly, what I'll do is get your question, and then Stu, I'll get your question, and we'll maybe answer them both together. Is that okay, Peter? Thank you.
Peter Flynn, SFM Radio in Sittingbourne. It's just a quick question that I think one of you can answer, don't need all 4. Where are we on, it's something Pippa touched on, with regards to methodology for audiences of community radio stations? Where are we with that from a CMA perspective?
Wow, CMA perspective. You'll have time to think about that one, Pippa. Because you do have a lot of CMA members here today as well, don't forget. You can answer it. Do you want to do that one straight away? Then I'll come to you, Stu, if that's okay.
Okay, so Wickham Sound was awarded a grant from the Community Radio Fund, and that money was awarded earlier this year, and we're leading a consortium of 10 stations to develop a methodology, and so that's where we are with it. There's been some obstacles along the way, but we've worked our way through those, and we hope to have some news maybe next time we meet. But there is work going on behind the scenes to develop a methodology. Once we've got that, we hand it to the CMA. That was the deal, so they can then roll it out across the sector.
Superb. Don't forget, we do have Richard here presenting this afternoon on the Community Radio Fund as well. Right, make it quick. One final question, then we'll have to call it quits there because I'm bloody hungry.
Hello, thank you to the panel for a fantastic series of presentations this morning. Stuart Baker from MCR. We are a radio in our infancy. We hope to launch next year. So my question is, in one line, can you give us one good piece of advice for launching a radio station successfully? And a second, very, very quick question. I think Pippa touched on foreign language programming, or a station nearby that has a foreign language policy. It's something we're considering at MCR. What legislation is there in place to ensure that we don't get into trouble if we have a Polish radio show for 2 hours once a month on a Sunday night?
Excellent, brilliant questions. David, let's start off on the left there. We'll go through and then we'll wrap up. If you don't want to, it's no problem. Launching a successful radio station.
Make sure there's an audience for your product.
Okay, Pippa.
Yeah, know exactly which part of the audience you are targeting.
Get a premises, photograph it, photograph people in it, get that out there. That's when the volunteers will come.
Get everywhere, be seen everywhere. Do as much as you possibly can to make people aware that you exist and that you're coming. And as for Polish programming, we run subtitles.
Oh, wow. That's 2 sentences. You failed 2 sentences.
You had 2 questions.
There's no golden answer, is there? Every area, every station's going to be different, I think, on how to launch. And I've always been a great advocate of you should always have the community before you have the radio station. When I was chair of the CMA, people would come to us and say, I want to start a radio station. And my first question would be, well, what community are you? So we'll work that out. Basically, I want my own radio station. That's not how it happened. We were lucky in Bristol, we had that community, which brings us on to, which you're going to love, David, I will just wrap up with this one. 6 o'clock of an evening, prime time. We used to make people switch off. But more people then tuned in because we used to have an hour of Somali women, which comes onto your programme there. Great Somali population in Bristol. Nothing for Somali speakers. Lots of people speaking at Somali speakers in English, maybe with translations, but nothing to give Somali women a voice. The men hated it. Somali men hated it. They would listen to see what was being said. The women were giving out information. We didn't translate it, we didn't need to, we trusted them. We did get it checked every so often. So I would get somebody, and with Polish, we used to speak in 9 different languages at BCFM. When we first started, in a week we would have 9 different languages. Your head would explode if you did that on handover.
Once, I think you're about to wrap up.
I was.
Yeah. Was there a final comment from you, or are you just holding the microphone that way?
I'm just holding the microphone this way.
Okay, great. Sorry, I thought I'd just...
Shall I wrap up then?
Listen, just before you do,
okay.
As the lunch is just being laid out, we're going to have a word in a moment or two from our sponsors. Now, we were going to have 2 sponsors, but the other one is going to sponsor a future occasion. So we've got a tiny bit of time. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask my fellow panel members a question. And I think from your 2 presentations, David and Pippa, I'd be really interested in your answers. It's a 2-edged question, can community radio in a multimedia kind of landscape as we're in now and going forward be the central media hub of an area? And the second part of the question is, can we in our sector start to ask those all-important questions that local journalists used to ask of their local authorities and decision makers, which Grenfell and other terrible stories have emerged, is a complete shortfall in Theresa May's Britain, that of the questioning that comes with local journalists. At the national level we're fine, we've got the Telegraph, we've got the Times, the Guardian, we've got Radio 4, etc. But on a local level there is a definite shortfall of journalism standards questioning local decision makers. Can we be the central media hub, and can we build that back up?
Wow.
Yes and yes.
There you go, sorted. Pippa.
Yeah, yes and yes, absolutely. Otherwise, my whole life has been a complete waste of time.
Superb, Dave.
Exactly, yes and yes. I mean, you know, there aren't any other answers you can give to that.
Well,
Funny enough, there is
suppose
one.
then, unexpectedly short answers, but positive for all that. I mean, how are we going to resource that?
You said you had 2 questions.
We're starting a dialogue.
But exactly, maybe that's for another time. I think it's important to understand that we are all journalists by default. We are community journalists. There's all these new buzzwords, community generated or listener generated, viewer generated. How many times does the BBC ask you to submit your pictures, your audio, whatever? We are people on the ground. Just one final story. I remember during drive time on about 5 o'clock, we had a guy who then went on to produce Jeremy Vine and everything, so another success story. We have a railway line, old railway line going down the side of our studios, and some person went mad there once with a knife, stabbed a policeman or police community support officer and somebody else. We phoned up the local BBC Bristol, and said, we've got this story, we're there, do you want us to go on air? And the producer said, oh no, we've already produced our programme for today, thank you. Brilliant. What were people tuning into that day? Thank you very much. We were there. We were not only physically there, but we were there because we had people on the railway line talking to people. Don, one final word.
If anyone wants to know of a good model on exactly what I'm talking about, look no further than Bradford's community radio station and what Mary Dowson's leading up there.
It is lunchtime, thank you.
No, it's not.
It's not. No, we have the sponsors, I do apologise. Can we just put our hands together, please? It's been said several times, 4 great presenters there. Dave Englefield, Sedgemoor, Pippa Sawyer, Wigan Sound, David Harbour, Andover Radio, and of course Dr. Chambers from Summer Valley. Thank you so much.